I'd like to start by doing an acknowledgement of country. So BMRG is coming to you today from Bargara, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional country of the Tarrabalang, Bundak, Gureng, and Balai peoples, and pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. There's a couple of panellists joining us today. My name is Andrew Trelaw. I'm the Project Director for Project Delivery. And joining me as well from BMRG is Deborah Medhurst. So I might get Deb to introduce herself, and then we'll go to you, Karen, and then to you, Nina, and then we'll kick off the webinar. Over to you, Deb.
Morning, my name's Deborah Medhurst, and as Andrew said, I'm working here at BMRG in Bargara as a project officer and the Sustainable Agricultural Facilitator, and looking forward to learning more about the Great Artesian Basin Watertight project today. Thank you.
Over to you, Karen.
Yeah, hi everyone, good morning. I'm Corinne Diclos. I'm part of the Basins Project Management Office with the Department of Regional Development Manufacturer. Our team's based in Toowoomba. So the work our team conducts is split between many projects. We look after 2 Great Artesian Basin bore rehabilitation grant funding programs. We also administer 2 programs in the Murray-Darling Basin for riparian fencing and installing fish screens. And we also assist in what we're here today to talk about and hear about is the Watertight project. Yeah, so it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, Karen. Thank you very much. And Nina.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nina Groves. I am a project officer working with Desert Channels Queensland, and I'm located in Longreach. I will talk a little bit more about it shortly, but one of my priority projects at the moment is this Watertight project, and we'll talk about that soon.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I might formally hand over to Nina now so she can run through the presentation and the webinar. Presentation first and then discussions and questions at the end, Nina.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I'm just going to share my screen. Can you guys see that okay?
Yep,
Perfect.
That's good.
Okay. Thank you. Right. Again, thank you for the introductions, Andrew. Appreciate that. Hello, everyone. I'm joining you today from Longreach. I want to thank you all for coming along to listen to the webinar. And firstly, I would like to acknowledge the Inangai people on the land from which I'm presenting today in Longreach. We today are going to talk about protecting the Great Artesian Basin and a little bit about this Watertight project. So, the Great Artesian Basin, I think, lots of people will agree with me on this, is one of the most interesting topics there is, especially when you're interested in water, and I shouldn't say just interested, but water is everything in most respects and in context for us. There's plenty of information which has been published on the Great Artesian Basin, and I'm only going to touch on a few key facts here today. So the Great Artesian Basin is one of the largest underground water sources in the world and Australia's largest groundwater basins. It's the only reliable resource of fresh water throughout much of inland Australia, and about 65% of the basin lies within Queensland. Each year, around 150,000 megalitres of water from the basin is taken for livestock and domestic purposes, but 64% of this is lost through the evaporation and seepage in open air drains. Water loss from uncapped bores and uncontrolled water flows have resulted in a reduced pressure and significant environmental challenges. However, this water pressure loss is being recovered thanks to the capping and piping works completed thus far, and some springs are beginning to flow again. Sorry, just jumped ahead there. Okay, so the programs to cap and pipe stock and domestic bores have been ongoing for decades, and significant investment has been made to achieve the objectives of making the basin watertight. Groundwater pressure is increasing in the basin, and thanks to this capping and piping work, the increased water pressure is resulting in the re-emergence of the natural springs that I've just mentioned and wetland ecosystems, and they naturally provide important habitats for the native wildlife and plants. Sorry guys, I'm jumping ahead there. The Queensland Government's Natural Resource Recovery Program has funded a project delivered also by Desert Channels Queensland to identify and protect these re-emerging springs that I've just mentioned throughout the basin. So that's a side project, and I just mention it today because it's something that is definitely related in terms of the re-emerging springs. So there's plenty of information out there about that. So I'll just say that as a side note. Part of what has been made this possible in terms of the water flow so far is the regulation that is in place to protect the Great Artesian Basin. So this includes, as outlined here, the Queensland Government protecting water supplies in the basin through the water plan. To date, the state government, the Commonwealth and landholders have invested approximately $239 million in this rehabilitation program, with 749 bores rehabilitated and nearly 15,000 kilometres of bore drain decommissioned and replaced by piped reticulation. So despite this success, there are still outstanding projects. When I refer to projects, I'm talking about bores and bore drains alike within Queensland that require work to be rehabilitated or replaced, and around 209 free-flowing bores remain uncontrolled, and there are 4,000 odd kilometres of open bore drains reticulating water. So under the regulatory protocols, the Queensland Government has set a sunset date of 2nd of September 2032. So this means, with some minor exceptions, that all artesian basin bores are required to be capped and all open bore drains replaced by piped reticulation. The Queensland Government continues to work closely with the Australian Government, landholders and investors and other stakeholders to save water and do restoration of the pressures. This involves managing the water flows like we're talking about by the rehabilitating and replacing bores and replacing open bore drains, pipes, tanks and troughs. So we're referring to words such as controlled and watertight. I certainly have just mentioned them a couple of times. It is really important for us to take a look at and understand where the definition of controlled and watertight sit, and consider the definitions in your own time and understand what they may mean for your system. So bear with me as I talk through this. The section 29(2) of the water plan outlines the following definition. So the meaning of controlled is a water bore is controlled if it is a sub-artesian bore or an artesian bore that has permanent headworks controlling the flow of the water from the bore, or an artesian bore and water from the bore no longer flows naturally to the surface. So that'd be what we're referring to as controlled. In terms of the water type delivery system for a water bore, it is if a bore is controlled and water taken from the bore is distributed by a pipeline to a trough that contains the water, and the following are maintained in a way that minimises the loss of water. So the bore, pipeline and trough, and any cooling pond or storage tank mentioned in that subsection 3, you can see. Further to that, I want to raise your awareness of the recent notice which the department issued in late 2023. This information has been distributed by the Department of Regional Development, Manufacturing and Water. And I'll talk a little bit about what that contains here. So the department recently considered whether the deadline of 2nd of September 2027 was still reasonable for outstanding rehabilitation projects to be completed. The department determined the following. Drought and natural disasters over the past decade have economically constrained many landholders from being able to undertake the works, that the current improving GAB drought resilience program is fully subscribed and only funded until June 24. There will be outstanding projects after June 24. There are likely to be ongoing impediments, including a scarcity of the Class 3 drillers, weather conditions, of course, limiting site access and increasing costs and services, and materials required to complete the works on time. Based on those findings, the department has decided to change the date by which the watertight delivery system must be installed for those licences containing the relevant conditions. So the new installation date is the 2nd of September 2032. This will allow, as it stands, further time for people to consider what they need to do in terms of making their systems watertight. So a little bit about the DSQ Watertight project, I should say the Desert Channels Queensland Watertight project. So the Queensland Government's Department of Regional Development, Manufacturing and Water, RDMW for short, has funded Desert Channels Queensland in partnership with other NRM groups to educate and raise awareness of landholder responsibilities and obligations under the Great Artesian Basin and other regional aquifers, the water plan. We are also providing information about the benefits of being watertight and requirements around the maintenance of existing watertight systems across our region and our broader regions. So who's involved specifically is, as we talked about, the department, Desert Channels. We're in partnership with Southern Queensland Landscapes and Southern Gulf NRM. And additionally, we're also working with Burnett Merry Regional Group, Fitzroy Basin Association, Gulf Savannah NRM, and the NQ Dry Tropics. This project, at the moment, we have been undertaking it for a little over a year and a half. And this will continue until mid-March. Okay, let's take a look at your requirements and options as a license holder. If you have a non-watertight bore and or bore drains on your property, you do need to undertake progressive steps in making your system watertight. Now, I know this will look different for everyone. I understand that people are at different stages of this process and working to make their system watertight. Land managers located within the water plan area that have self-funded their own rehabilitation and piping work can make an application to take and use up to 30% of the water saved as an allocation to be used for any purpose. Land managers can also make an application under the GAB rehabilitation program to receive a subsidy to undertake capping and piping work. While funding isn't currently available, land managers can register their interest for follow-up when funding does become available. And we recommend doing this, providing your details so that the department can make contact with you should funding become available. Land managers can also provide their details to the department for the provision to third parties who are looking to undertake work as part of government requirements to do make good work, or the entities looking to undertake philanthropic contributions. In special circumstances, bores that support significant cultural or environmental values may be exempt from being made watertight. If it is believed that the bore-fed wetlands in a scenario such as this have a significant environmental, cultural or social benefits, an application can be made to the Department of Assessment and may be possible for continuation. We would refer you to both the application for the assessment of bore-fed wetlands, but prior to doing that, making contact with the department to discuss your situation. If a previously ceased to flow bore begins to reflow on your property, you must notify the department, and you can do that by contacting your local office or emailing the Water Hub with the email address listed there. So I've really covered only, I guess, a large topic today with a little bit of information for you to prompt you to really look for further detail. And of course, I welcome questions, and if you have any further questions or would like to obtain further information about anything that was talked about in this presentation, please feel free to contact myself or the department. We have contact details here available, as you can see on the screen. Alternatively, please make contact with myself and I can point you in the right direction. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to learn more about the Protecting the Great Artesian Basin today, and also thank the panellists, Andrew and Deb, and also Corinne for attending as a panellist today. Thank you, Andrew.
You're on mute, Andrew. Can you hear me? Oh, I don't think you could hear us. I've got a question, if that's all right, if I can ask ask a question?
We have another question.
Excellent. Corinne, I've actually got a couple probably directed towards you. One in regards to the 30% allocation for any purpose use by landholders. Could you just expand on that a bit, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Deborah. So under the Gorbora Water Plan, under Section 53, so this provides an incentive for water licence holders to make their bore and drain systems watertight. So watertight essentially means that it means that bore drains are no longer in use, with piping tanks and troughs installed to distribute the water from the bore, and all water is used through a controlled method, which reduces the total loss of water. So the water plan allows for 30% or greater of water savings generated from making bores and drains watertight to be granted as a water licence to the landholder. So the volume of water granted as a water licence will then have an associated market value, which can be used to help offset some specific eligibility criteria stated in the water plan. For those who are interested in this to participate. So the copy of the water should come up on our Business Queensland website. So yeah, there's information. Obviously, you can go and have a look at Section 53 and area. But also, if you'd prefer to actually speak to someone about the 30% licence incentive, if you contact your local RDMW office, if you've got one close by, it'll be the water licensing team that is based there, and they'll be able to assist you. And their email addresses were the ones that Nina had up at the end of the slideshow there before. So yeah, but alternatively, we can help you here as well. In our group, we can direct you to where you need to go. We have a generic inbox here. So it's the GABPMO, GABPMO at rdmw.qld.gov.au. So our team here can also assist or point you in the right direction. We're here to help. So yeah. Did that cover what you'd like to know, Deborah?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was great. Thanks, Corinne, for that. And then I just had another quick question in regards to Nina talked about that there's currently no funding for the costs associated with this at the moment, but there may be access to that in the future. What would be the best advice to landholders in regards to those people who are making their bores watertight? Should they be keeping receipts and costs and that sort of thing so that if funding does come available in the future?
Sure, that's a great question. So we are in our last, as Nina said, we're in our last year of our currently funded program. It ends in June this year. So we've put in bids with the Commonwealth. So we're really keeping everything crossed that provide us more funding so we can get another program up and running, because there's still a huge demand from landholders. We realise that it's a very costly thing to most of these bores are so old that they need to be plugged and then re-drilled. So we don't, with the grant funding programs, we don't pay for works that have already been completed. That's the only, I guess, hitch. So we will, if we do get more funding, we'll certainly be doing another call for applications. So if anyone's interested, we can certainly pop your details onto our mailing list here. So hopefully we get more funding. We don't know for sure yet, but we've certainly put in the best case that we could. And now with the watertight extension happening too, that also gave us a little bit more punch, I guess, in our funding bids. So yeah, we can certainly put you on our mailing list. So if you'd like to be included on that, certainly get in touch with Nina, and she can pass on your details, or your local office, and they can pass on. If not, we've got that general GABPMO email address that I said before. I can pop it into the chat if that makes it easier.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be great.
Thanks,
Excellent.
Corinne.
Thanks.
Karen, is there any stipulation around who can do the work? Can the farmer or the landowner do it themselves, or does it has to be done by a qualified contractor?
So with the drilling of a bore, that has to be, if it's a GAB bore, it has to be performed by a Class 3 driller. So there is actually a list of drillers for the whole, I think it's either Australia or Queensland, on our Business Queensland website. It just has a list of every single driller, regardless of what class they are. But for GAB work, they have to be a Class 3 driller. We have the option as part of the application process for grant funding. Landholders, if they are going to decommission bore drains and put in piping systems, so that's all your pipes, tanks, troughs. They do have the option, if they would like to install that themselves and have the ability to do so, they can do that, or they also have the option of getting a contractor. So it's completely up to the landholder.